Ceasefire Detroit, it's a part of a national strategy, a national model to help reduce and curb gun violence, specifically gang violence in urban communities. Came to Detroit in 2012, and it is essentially a partnership with community, law enforcement, and service providers and clergy, right? That brings a very strong and powerful message that's targeted to a specific individual, those who are responsible for the violence. Those are the trigger pullers, right? Those who are actively involved in gangs.
Our goal is really to get them out of that lifestyle, out of that violence, and to hopefully pull them into something more productive. Whether that means from community outreach, getting them more involved in community type situations, getting them employed, whether it's resources and services, if it's counseling that they need, if it's other things that's happening, need help with, getting their IDs, getting tickets paid off, because that's a pathway to prison. It also invites trouble, right? And even faith-based to our degree, obviously, which is more about how do we penetrate beyond all of that and get to the soul of the individual and the spirit of the individual. Because as I often say, you can remove the gun from a person's hand, but you got to take the violence out of their heart, because we've got to begin to see them in this essence that there's something deeper in them than what they're doing or what's coming out. There's something deeper in them.
What's happening on a national level and what's getting a lot of attention, right? Media attention. Let's separate that from what's happening in urban communities. What's, victimizing, our children, right? Not knowing how to resolve a conflict, right? Because what they've been taught. These are second, third generation gang members, right? This is the way we live, right? There's a trend that, and I really think it's a cultural issue. It's a societal issue. We are in love with guns. That has been the American way for many, many years, right? And so we've seen this trend pick up, right? But in urban communities, we've been conditioned to live a certain way, okay? And there's so many factors why that is, right? And Bishop kind of alluded to that when you're talking about changing the heart of an individual. We're about going into that living room, touching that young man, providing resources and support and having real conversations with that mother who's just lost her son or daughter to gun violence. We're about being boots on the ground and touching families. That is the crux, really, of what Ceasefire Detroit does. That is our mission, right? We have to understand our lane. And we have to understand what we're good at. We have to understand, we've been called for this time, for this purpose, to do a specific work, but for Ceasefire Detroit, we have to be specific about our work and what we do. And so I feel like there's two conversations, and every time these mass shootings happen, there's so much attention that goes to that, right? And now the conversation about changing policies and changing laws and, but this has been plaguing our community for years. It wasn't getting that kind of attention that these mass shootings are getting. So why all of a sudden there's a conversation about it when this has been going on, right? So let's have, how do we bring that resolve and bring resolution and bring resources, right, to that problem specifically? And really, that's the work of Ceasefire. We're about touching the people where people are hurting from this disease, because it is a disease, right? Bringing help and bringing resources to those families who've been victimized by gun violence. That's our work. That's what Ceasefire Detroit does.
And I think on the end, I don't think it can be more succinct than that. I think what that causes us to think about is why these sorts of things are happening with the guns available, right? And then again, it goes to the touch of the heart. Can you imagine how ignored and rejected Gen Z feels? I mean, to turn on and look at the news and see that, this person in Atlanta, and God, no, it's horrible. It's horrible. You could take
Yeah.
any mass and it's horrible. I'm certainly not saying that. But to know that my 3 friends who got killed yesterday got no attention. We're completely ignored. Gen Z is we're just completely ignored. And so, you know, a part of what I've been trying to bring to the table, and I think I'm being successful at it, is making sure again that it's not the religiosity of it, but it's the practicality of spiritual application. No matter how you look at it, the same thing is going to heal us as before. It all starts with the spirit of an individual. If I can do something with your heart, if I could do something with your spirit, doesn't matter if you have a gun available to you, because you now have different options, a different source whereby you can respond to conflict and things that happen to you that you don't like. It starts with finding the contradiction, right? Because first you have to find the contradiction that they believe is the truth. And I go in and they say something like, well, you know, doesn't matter about what happens to me. You know, I'm just gonna take care of business because it don't matter about what happens to me. So then I'll say, well, if it doesn't matter about what happens to you, why are you carrying a gun? If it doesn't matter about what happens, if you don't care if you live or die, why are you carrying a gun? Because, well, the first question I would ask is, so why do you carry the gun? They'll say, because I got to protect myself. I ain't gonna be caught out here. Well, now I got a contradiction because you just said that it doesn't matter what happens to you and you don't care about your life. But now you're telling me that the reason you carry this gun is because you can't be caught out here slipping, which means you'll take somebody else's life because you're not going to let them take yours. So one of these can't be true. When I put that on the table, people are forced to kind of step back and say, okay. One person even accused me one time. He's like, you're doing that psychology stuff on me. I'm like, no, it's your own words. I'm not using anything. You said this, and then you said this, and those two statements don't go. And I believe that if you can just present a person to their own contradictions that they're living, you don't have to tell them what's a lie and what's the truth. You at least open that space to where you said your mind has to be the first thing that's transformed. I got to get you thinking differently. But if you can introduce them to their own contradiction, whether it's feeling or whether it's mental, that gives you enough space to then get in and say, obviously, there's got to be another way.
I can speak to you from a place of experience. I know how this story ends, right? You don't have to walk that road because I've already walked it for you, right? Let us show you how to go a different route. So you couple that with those spiritual ideas and spiritual fundamental ideas that Bishop brings to the table, magic happens. Magic happens in those family rooms, right? Inside by that hospital bed or wherever we may be, in that parking lot. You see an awakening in these young people's eyes when they hear that message, right? When that happens, that's what makes me get out of my bed every single morning, or 2 o'clock in the morning when we get a call from DPD about a homicide and we got to show up. That right there, the opportunity to awaken that in the individual, that's what drives us. And we see it over and over and over again.
Like the one time, Q, you asked the guy, he was just so upset, just, the police at his house, and he was just so upset. And he talked about how he should just go out there and just smack the policeman and all of this kind of stuff. And Q just asked him simple questions. And then what?
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes they're motivated by their feelings, not by thought. So nobody has just said that. What do you think is going to happen after you do that? That'd be like the movies, and all the police officers will say, "Oh my God, you just smacked one of us. And we better go away. We better leave him alone." Or do you let me pull somebody up here that can show you the reality of what it is, the officer, right? And how you're going. And just when you couple that together, and the reason why it's not as honored in the broad sense that it should be is because that takes time. You don't just get that. Not just an overnight awakening experience that you can have. We can plan, we can open your mind in, but in order to really get that turnaround where you trust what's being said and see there's a different way of living, that takes a moment. We have proven that it can happen. And it's not in massive numbers like people, because see, they just want the shooting to stop. They just want the violence to stop without addressing, as Q was saying earlier, some of the root causes. They don't want to see that they're ignoring Gen Z and ignoring and rejecting the millennials is what's got Gen Z in this position that they're in. They don't want to atone for that.
Be led with love, be led with love. I mean, although we have folks on our team who have lived experiences, and so they can be relatable at the end of the day, when someone it's innate in all of us, when we know that someone genuinely loves us, and that's a decision, right? I'm unconditionally. It's not about what you did or what you didn't do, right? I love you regardless. And once I demonstrate that, and it's active, and I activate that love, and it's tangible, they can feel it. That's what wins individuals over. You know what I mean? So when we try to teach that, lead this work with love, right? And sometimes you don't always get the result that you're looking for. But what's key is that we're dropping a seed, right? Drop that seed, they're going to remember. And it may be up to someone else, another pastor, another organization, right? A family member or somebody else to water that seed, right? And so, it's about where do we leave our mark? That's the key, and what I can say is, for the most part, most of the folks on our current team, they were doing this kind of work before Ceasefire existed. So we know it's a passion. We know this isn't about money. It's not about a check. It's not about anything else but a care for humanity, wanting to see a safer Detroit. That's why they're in this work. So if you lead with that love, lead with that kind of passion, I think nothing but good things can come from that.
It's very difficult for you to shoot somebody that loves you.
That's right.
It's almost impossible.
That's right.
You can't do it. At least not without a conscience. You can't do it, right?
Right.
When you love someone, you can't. And so just giving that message, and again, more importantly than giving the message verbally, it's giving the message, and demonstratively, being able to demonstrate. Sometimes, we go out there, we show this love, and at the beginning, the guys don't know how to take it. They've never seen it before. And it's like, man, get away from me. They don't
know how to accept you. Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Hey, man, I'll haul up in a minute and say, hey, bro, I love you, man. Whoa. No, you care about me a whole lot. No, brother, that ain't there. But I say this, Right. But then if you do it and you keep, and then they just think like, that's just you, isn't it? Well, let me find out something else about you. How do you do that?
Mm-hmm.
And that, if I could get you to begin to question how I do what I do, if you could begin to get you to question, how can he do? What I'm thinking about, Q? Who was that to your house that time? And he got to see you interacting with your family and interacting with your children. And he went back, getting ready to take him home. And he's like, that's what I want.
Yeah.
Just realized that that's what I want. And I've been going about it wrong. I can never get this if I'm doing this over here. Q,
that's right.
How did you do that?
How did you do it?
Yeah, you're ready for transformation.
I am Quincy Smith. Welcome to church.
I am Bishop Daryl Harris. Welcome to church.